School District 65 Board of Education regular meeting for January 26, 2016. We have a roll call, please.
Mark Berry.
Present.
Leanne Charlotte, present. Julie Gottschall.
Present.
Richard Haig.
Present.
Philip Hood.
Present.
John Morozen.
Present.
Susan Ryder.
Present.
Okay, we have a full house, so we have a quorum. We're going to begin because it's 7 o'clock.
It is 7 o'clock.
And we're going to start with Pledge of Allegiance. So please stand and join me. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So even before I get into the opportunity for public comment, because that is next, I just want to make some people aware of some minor changes to our agenda. First, discussion item 8B, which is 2016-2017 programming changes, is being tabled until next committee of the whole meeting because we felt that needs to be relabeled in a more clear way to reflect that we'll be discussing changes to the elementary school 4th, 5th multi-age program. So that 8B is tabled until the next meeting. And then items, let's see, 8E, Lake Bluff Middle School renovation update, we're going to move to the top because our architect and construction company representatives are here now and we'd like to get them to go to the home before the late hours. So
And they're sick.
yeah, and there's apparently a cold in the house. So 8E is now going to be the top item under discussion. So if anybody in the audience would like to address, we're going to go to public comment. If anybody in the audience would like to address the board, please feel free. Welcome to step up and say what you would like to say. If not, we'll move on to item 5, where we offer the opportunity for board members to add an additional discussion item or agenda item for future use. Anybody like to recommend something that we think we should be talking about? Please do so now. If not, Dr. Sophie will take us through item 6, recognition.
Kevin is presenting something very neat.
Last week we had the privilege of hosting 8 teachers from the Megan David Jewish School in Panama, Panama City, Panama. They were here with our math consultant, Janice Heigl, looking at our math programs and observing our teachers and working with our teachers over the course of the week. We were really excited to have them in our schools. We had a great time with them. Kelly, Bay, and myself got to spend some social time with them on Sunday. We gave them our best Chicago weather of 14 degrees and wind chill factor of probably 0, and they left Panama when it was 92 degrees. So this was a little bit of a shock to the system. They were generous in presenting our school district with a flag of Panama to symbolize our newfound friendship. There's meaning behind the flag and each of the symbols there that I won't go into. Some of them are rather politically related and oriented, but they also gave us a plaque thanking us, and so I wanted to present that plaque to the members of the Board of Education this evening.
Thank you. That's excellent. The kids get to interact with them?
A lot of our kids got to interact with them because what they were doing was going in and working with kids during small group time and workplaces and that sort of thing, and so it was really quite exciting. It's a very, very progressive school in Panama, so not only are they implementing bridges, but they are also implementing Lucy Calkins units of study, which is similar to what we're doing. Apparently there's 2 schools in the whole country of Panama that are implementing Common Core standards. And they're one of them.
Interesting.
So yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Wow.
Very exciting.
It was very exciting.
They also attended our math night, which was another treat for all of them. Very, very exciting. So I will hold on to this.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, so we're going to move on to item 7, our reports. Item 7A is the elementary school report and Principal St. Clair.
Actually, neither one of our principals have a report this evening.
Okay, so that's easy. Skip. Moving on to C, PTO report, and this Eva Rice.
Hello, good evening. Just going through a quick update. I don't know if we ever talked about in December our mosaic unveiling that we had with PTO and the Alliance for Education, and it was a great success. It was a nice turnout, and the kids really were proud to show off what they have done lately to their parents. So that was great. We also met with Dr. Rubenstein recently about school kits. That's something that the district now is going to kind of own. It's, the PTO has spent a lot of time working with the district to get it to where it is now, but I think it might be easier if one group takes it over. And of course, the PTO will help with distribution and any other way we can. Kiddos at LBES we got our first check of about $5,600. So we are about halfway through what we usually make on food day. So I think our goal was $10,000, and I think we'll make that by the end of the year. So that was all good news. We had a drop in January after the holidays. People just kept forgetting to order, like myself included. So we are back, at a nice number now, and I think we'll be fine. Recycle and compost, we did this wonderful training, which we had, I think, 46 people come out and actually do a training with us. And that was, at that point, we were turning over to do 2 shifts of recycle and compost, so people didn't have to stay there for 4 hours. And we've had lots of people sign up. The kids have really improved in their recycling and compost. We had a Think Green assembly that was sponsored by the PTO, and they talked about recycling and all things green. So that was good news. LBMS is doing a book fair. They changed the date to align with the teacher conferences on Thursday and Friday of this week, and that's something new. So we hope that sales will go up, and we're looking forward to a successful book fair. Teacher appreciation. We are at LBES doing a dinner for the teachers, and LBMS hosting like a lunch for the teachers. So that's just something that the PTO has always done around teacher conferences. LBMS renovation. We all voted, I don't know if I gave this at the last update, but we all voted at the district level, LBES and LBMS PTO all together to give $195,000 to the renovation. And we hope that will, $195,000.
Wow.
We hope that will go to something like STEM.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Those could be yours.
That was a great report.
Yeah.
Craig, you should talk about it. Great job.
We can thank them because they're in essence paying for the STEM lab, which, by the way, I just got an email late this afternoon from our sales rep. So we're going to all have to regroup on that, and because there is some discussion on that video room that we had talked about too. So
Good news. Item E. Jay, do you have anything for us tonight? Okay. So that was the Director of Finance report.
The Alliance report.
Oh, there is no line.
She's not here
Lady White
tonight.
is not going to be able to attend tonight, so we're skipping that. Sorry. I knew that. Dr. Rubenstein, anything tonight? So nothing for our Director of Student Services at this point. President's report. I have nothing to say that's very relevant right now, other than continued thanks to all the different parties involved in the planning and preparation that goes into Lake Bluff Middle School renovation. The number of committees involving parents and faculty and teachers and administrators the amount of work these people have put in is tremendous, and I just want to publicly thank them. Dr. Sophie, Principal Nate Blackmer put in countless hours, our architect, our construction company representative. Really appreciate all the time and effort everybody's put into this. It's going to be a great project, and it's a lot of work. We got a long ways to go, but so many people have touched it that I just want to say thank you and recognize all that. So, And then is there a superintendent's report?
There is not. We cut our reports to save it for the LBMS renovations.
All right, so then, as I said earlier, item A, discussion, we're gonna bring item E to the top, the middle school renovation update, go right to that, and have, I think we're out meeting with Tom Karan.
I'm gonna
Dr.
leave.
Sophie's gonna lead and take us into it.
And Tom, if you and Craig can come up, because I know there's going to be questions. Jay needs to be prepared. We have several items to go through with you. So what I'm going to do first of all is talk a little bit about the sheet that's in front of you. It says at the top IHC through bid group 2, 95% at the top. We're going to go through that. You should also have projections, because Jay has done projections, because that is also going to be discussed this evening, because it's all ties together. Certainly if I forget anything, I would ask Leanne or Mark or Nate or Tom or Craig to step in, but I'm going to do my best to summarize. Over the course of the past few months, as you know, we've been going through really for a lot of village approvals, which has amounted into some unexpected expenses of about, as I shared with you in a board update, around $90,000. It's not a bad, good, or indifferent. It's just something as you go through a village board process, some of the expenses that have incurred from that. Along with that, we are also working through the acoustical issues with the HVAC. I know as much about HVAC now that my son is appalled, who's an HVAC engineer, that I actually kind of understand his lingo. I think it scares him. But I will share with you that where we are now with the acoustical, and we gave just a rough draft, is somewhere around $90,000 extra, and that encompasses 3 different engineers used at different times. We are already buying a larger HVAC unit for the roof, because then it doesn't run as much and then it's a little bit quieter. And then we'll have options. So the acoustical engineer will give us things like, if you wrap it in a blanket, you can cut the decibels by X. If you put this little shield up on the roof, you can count the decibel, cut back X. We still don't have a goal of where we're trying to meet, and we will probably be developing that with our acoustical engineer, who is looking over the previous chiller studies, looking over our situation, looking at our plans, and we'll come up. That should all be culminating sometime this month.
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
The baseline measurements for the acoustics, do those take place in the houses that are affected?
On their
The reason I
properties.
ask- Yeah, the baseline. So, I mean, they've got ongoing noise. They've got their own ACs going, their furnaces going, the train goes by. So somewhere you need a baseline to determine where you're going to start. And above that baseline is what's being created by whatever our own cooler. So that baseline is established in those homes?
On their property
On their
line.
property.
It's actually on the property line.
On the property line?
And,
Okay.
it's, yes.
It is on the property line. And it might be advantageous depending on what the report is. When we get the report from the acoustical engineer, we may have him come and present.
Yeah.
Just, that's something that's coming up. We don't know the answers yet.
And I just, if I may, I would absolutely recommend, not maybe, he needs to be here.
Yeah.
And he's aware of that.
Okay.
Just given what we've gone through to date on the issue, I think it would be very valuable for you to hear what he has to say. We are expecting his first draft of the report next week. I spoke with him this morning. So we're on track with what we explained to the neighbors that we were going to do, and everything that Dr. Sophie mentioned in terms of all the options that you'll have to pick from to meet the state guidelines at the property level and then exceed those levels as well.
And our goal is definitely to exceed those levels. We just don't have a specific until we've met with the experts. I think the other thing that we need to put in, so 90 and 90 is 180,000 of expenses we did not count on. Then our first bid package went out, as well as and that came in a little higher price than we had expected also. When you combine all those things, we're over budget. And now is the time we need to talk about choices.
Can I just ask a question there too? I hate
Yes.
to interject, but I mean, it seems to me we made these bid estimates 3 months ago, 4 months ago.
They're ongoing.
But I mean, the original projections when we sat down and decided that 9.2 was the number we were shooting for.
Correct.
And within 3 or 4 months, we missed concrete steel by about 40%. That seems
Correct.
to me to be a pretty big miss. And I'm just concerned now with the early misses and still a considerable amount of money yet to be spent. Do you anticipate further misses of that sort? Or?
It's always extremely difficult to sit here and project. You know, we sit here and take a set of drawings and do an estimate off of it. Just as we receive bids that have even more than 40% spreads on them, we run into that too. I mean, there's bids that we were 20% under. So to say that that we're going to miss it by 40% down the line, I think might be a little on the extremely.
You can
conservative
understand
side.
our concern.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there's no way to predict other than using our basic estimating on how someone else looks at a particular job or a particular trade package.
I think the other thing to keep in mind with that is we built the contingency in. So we have money for it. It's just that that's money now from the contingency that we don't have anymore.
No, but we're $250,000 over in those two categories. That's a big number.
It's a big number. And we're now at a point that we need to make some decisions. I think in order to make those decisions, I want to give you kind of the big picture on a couple things. The first is if you look at the IHC sheet, and I want to kind of walk you through what's down at the bottom and tell you how we got to that. What you see down at the bottom are things that we had to prioritize as a team, and the team that prioritized these was the steering committee last week. So that's made of our larger group of stakeholders, some community members, some parents, teachers, administrators, board members. And so I'm going to kind of walk you through that, what these all mean. And then I'm going to turn it over to Jay because several of you have asked questions about fund balance, where we are with that, what happened to the money, the quote unquote extra money from the bonds. And I'm going to turn that over to you because there's other information too as we've worked through this. So let me walk through the alternates first, and we've got the two experts here that can answer any questions. One of the things that happened when we went to the village is they said that they didn't like the design of the front entrance that we had designed. So Craig went back and designed this phenomenal revised front entrance. I mean, it's beautiful. And again, we have to make a choice. And we talked about this at our steering committee, and without question, all of us said, hey, the front entrance is the first impression. This is where people are going to be walking in the door and they need to be wowed. Now this 101, is that the total or is that on top of what we had budgeted before?
The original entrance is included in the upper portion of the base.
So this
So
is
the basic
101.
front entrance is at the top, and then if we wanted to do the
Yes, an
expanded
additional
one, it's an additional 100.
So the additional one is 101,000. Now, because it is at the very top of the alternates, what that means is that our committee ranked that first, because we actually prioritize all of these.
So these are in descending order from most highly prized to least.
And
The-
because, again, the costs are incremental to the 9.2.
Exactly.
9.3. Okay.
With the exception of the district office.
Which we're going to talk about next. You want to talk about that one?
Go ahead.
The district office we put in green, and I'm still having a problem with it, but we have to put it out there. One of our options for $650,000 is to kind of just map out the district office in the basement, let it be, and put that $650,000 in the building. I shared with the committee that when we sold bonds and we talked to the community about this, we said that this district office would be moving downstairs. So This is already built into the top expenses, but you need to know that if we took that part out and didn't actually put the district office in, we could save $650,000 now. That does not take into account what we're paying for rent every month, because there is a cost savings. I think we figured out that would pay for itself, what, in 10 years?
10 years.
Okay. So then the next thing that we've got is remove and replace existing corridor flooring. That would mean in the old section of the building, we would be able to replace all the existing corridor flooring, so at least the corridors would look the same, standard.
So you'd have continuity between
They-
new and old.
New continuity between new and old, 50,000. Okay. My personal favorite, remove and replace classroom doors and hardware, is about 45,000 because that's per door. Remove and replace the classroom floors, that would be in the old part of the building, is about 175,000. The next two, water and gas to the storage shed, are requests from Steve because he is putting different supplies out there. He has different needs. In order to get water and gas out to the storage shed, it's about $15,000. The RTU screen sound abatement, this is in addition to the 90,000, isn't it? On more sound abatement for the air conditioning unit. And we put that in here. Really what that we had decided with that, we were letting that float kind of in outer space because we don't have enough of a recommendation yet to say that we do or don't want to do that yet. So I would almost prefer that you circle the RTU screen and sound abatement and keep it out of the discussion right now because we don't have the report from the acoustic engineer. As you know, we've discussed regrading the field. There are $2 figures here, and I always get them mixed up. So, Tom, I'm turning that over to you for explanation.
With the first bid package, excavation was out there. So out of that $200,000, it was a $30,000 to go out there and regrade that. What still needs to be added is sod seed and or hydro seeding, whichever would be to that. So that actually came in much less than we anticipated.
I'd like to point out on the priorities, after everything from this point down, regrade field through additional landscaping, the committee decided we're kind of equally weighted at the bottom of the priority list. There's just things we had to make some decisions, some serious decisions, and these 5 things we put right to the bottom, and I don't know that there's an order.
There is no order. We just decided they were all.
Those are just all at the bottom.
I would also share, adding to Mark, all these things at the bottom were items that have come up at one of the village approval meetings. So the way our approval is structured is that we have to bring this report February 2nd, and we have to be able to say, yes, we've hired these acoustic engineers, we are working with the neighbors, and we are working very diligently with the neighbors to meet those concerns. We have reviewed the additional landscaping request for around the storage. Our committee reviewed it, and we can't afford it. And we can share that at our village meeting. We just can't do that. A skylight between 2 of the wings, one of the existing wings and the new wing, that was suggested. Again, we put it on alternates. We shared with the village we were going to put it on an alternate. Our committee of people did not feel that was weighted as highly as, for instance, redoing the floors and the doors.
Or the front entrance, which the
village
requested.
So when you look on here, we've got some choices to make. Now, I don't know if I'd call it good news, but Jay has some financial information to share with you. Before you get started with that, I would like you to share the information for the taxpayers because I think that's important, and then go into the projections because the board will need to discuss that.
Before we go to that, does anybody have any questions for Tom or Craig about the numbers that you see on the...
I actually have one question. The flooring number that we have,
Yes.
I recall in a meeting that we talked about some different grades of flooring.
Correct.
And when we talked about those, there are differences in the maintenance costs so that, if you spend a little bit more up front, you do better over time. And so I'm curious if, like, these numbers, what are they?
These numbers reflect a flooring that's called LVT, which is a better
The
product.
better. Okay.
Yeah,
The numbers in the
that
top.
Yeah.
What's
Top
that?
sec- The numbers in the top section.
reflect that. Also, the
The alternate.
alternate
Right,
numbers
yeah.
still reflect the LVT, which is a better product. It's less maintenance. It's got a longer lifespan than VCT.
And we had a somewhat lengthy discussion on that last week, so
Okay.
that
Sorry,
was
I missed that one.
no, but that was an important thing to bring up because I think the other board members need to know that.
Okay.
I'm
So
still a little confused, maybe you could help me. The district office, I thought that was always built into the 9.3.
It is. That's kind of why I have it highlighted and mentioned at the bottom.
you may have.
And it's not an alternate, it is built in. We were just presenting that as hey, just in case.
If you wanted to
there's a
say,
issue, this is what we could pull out of the top. So it's in the 9.3.
Okay, so actually the incremental then to alternatives is 774 less 650, about 100.
No, the 650 is not included in that 700.
You add the 650.
Oh, it's not including the 700?
no, we just are putting that out there to draw your attention to that.
Yes.
I wouldn't put it in subtotal if it's in the above numbers. I mean, it's just
It's not.
confusing.
It says that it's not done here.
It's
So,
sort of a.
it is confusing. It is.
Right. It doesn't belong in either.
The reason why, actually, this was a really lengthy conversation that we had at the core team. And the reason why it was taken out, at least to highlight, was because it was the one area that doesn't affect the kids. So we thought, at least for conversation purposes at the board level, that it
We
should
should
be
have
brought
just
up.
bring it to you.
Yeah.
And that's debatable, to be honest with you. That point about not affecting kids, having Dr. Sophie in the building and her staff in the building, I think that's debatable as well. It may not be as directly, but
Well, there's a payback on the investment. It's a
Yeah.
10-year payback, but there is a
That too.
payback, so it's not
Right.
like a sunk cost.
So, Jay, oh wait,
One more
Leanne had
question.
another question, or Julie?
On the alternates, it seems like certain things maybe you could hold back on and do in the future without it
A
being
plan.
materially more expensive. Is that true? When I think of, for example, remove and replace existing classroom doors and hardware, we can do that now as part of the renovation, or we can do it in 2 years. Does the cost change significantly if we do it as part of the renovation or not?
For that item, no, because you're right. That's something that, you could go out and buy doors and hardware and replace them as you go, which wouldn't have a huge impact putting that down the road. Something like flooring, when you're doing flooring throughout the whole building, if you have that opportunity to do more of it, you'll get a better bang for your buck, shall we say, for the flooring end of it.
Got it. And the skylight, I assume it's a lost opportunity. It's now or never with
It's
the
now
skylight.
with the
Right.
skylight, correct.
Okay.
And I recall from our conversation that the water and gas to the storage shed is better to be done now if it's going to be done at all.
Correct.
And no electricity, or that we're doing electricity anyway.
We had electricity in the budget.
Already.
originally.
Okay, got it.
And again, for definitional purposes, general conditions, the 468,000, what's that for?
Toilets, trailers, testing agency, final cleaning, silt fence,
barricade fencing.
barricades,
Okay.
those types of
And
things.
FF&E, what's that mean?
Furniture.
Okay.
All right, Jay.
Okay.
Wait, is everybody all good here on those questions? Want everybody to understand?
Yeah, because we're definitely going to have to come back to it too.
So first, just some news about our bonds. Based on current market conditions, there's some potential to be able to refinance our existing 2008 debt, which would save approximately $1.25 million
For our taxpayers.
straight off of. It basically would be $113,000 per year right off of the extension. So it would go straight to the taxpayers. That's about 25% of the increase in taxes due to the middle school project.
And those are net savings.
Those are net savings, net of costs, and everything. So
It's like a market condition development that is made us practical.
it's become more possible because market conditions have improved. So given the things happening in the stock market and with oil prices, the municipal bond market has become a lot more favorable. And then also we're 6 months closer to the call date of the bonds, and as you get closer to the call date, it becomes more fiscally attractive because you don't have the downside.
And all those bonds are called in the next 6 months?
There's actually, I think, $15 million of bonds that the call date is 2018. Tammy will be coming to the next board meeting to talk about the different options, but the recommendation will likely be to refinance 10 million of those, because you get the first $10 million of bonds that you issue, you get a much better interest rate, about 0.5%. And so most of the savings is on that first 10 million, and then the last 4 you can still do at the call date or in the future or the following year when you get another $10 million shot, and you can still get the lion's share of the savings with that first amount.
That's great.
I think that'll be great news for the taxpayers.
Yeah,
I really do.
She's going to come, and then she'll basically explain different options, and you can pass a resolution that just sets parameters that gives us the authority to issue bonds if interest rates and certain parameters are met, so that it's like a call option on issuing the bonds. We don't have to do it, but if we can save money, then we can quickly.
It sets a trigger, so
Right.
All right, you want to get into fund balance discussion?
So just kind of to summarize, as you saw in this month's Treasurer's report, we're running significantly favorable to budget this fiscal year, and would likely be able to absorb the majority of these alternate or unexpected costs for the middle school project just with the surplus funds from this year without impacting the future forecast or the future projection. So the projection numbers that you have at your desk.
We're going to say that again?
yeah, what say that?
So the projection
gotta
numbers
say
you
it
have
like
at
so
your
it's
desk.
low, so they
Did
can
you
hear
say
it.
you found it's like $700,000?
Well, about some.
Not 700, but close.
So
He's the guy.
we are running favorable to budget this year, which is not unexpected. And as the year has progressed, I feel very comfortable and confident that we will have at least, I could commit to $400,000 by the end of the year.
Phenomenal.
And then the way that the alternates work out, as Julie pointed out, some of the things like the flooring have a longer lead time, and we can actually do the alternate bid and not commit on doing the flooring until closer to the end of the year when we have even more certainty as to how much money is remaining at the end of the year.
Does that work with what Tom needs for your
Yep.
timing?
Yeah. So
The flooring or the doors?
well, the doors for sure, but
Yeah.
the flooring, if it has to be installed in September, if we
Yeah, that's-
May,
Right.
in May we'll have a much better idea than we do today of how much money will be left over, and could feel better about committing an extra $100,000 or so. A lot of this surplus is coming from the revenue side, so we knew when we passed the budget that we were not budgeting for general state aid. We were paid general state aid this year. We took it out of the budget so as not to rely on it, because it's likely going away at some point, but we've got the money this year. There were several other favorable things on the revenue side. We got a significant amount of E-rate funds this year. We hired an E-rate consultant who's gone out and applied for a significant amount of funding for capital projects, as well as on our base internet service and phone service. So we're getting more money there than we expected. We also did very well in our auction. There's just a lot of miscellaneous revenue things that weren't budgeted because they're not things that you can count on. So a lot of that money is, I'm fairly certain that it'll be there at the end of the year right now. We also were budgeting on the expense side for some tax objections that didn't come in, and there's a couple other expenditures that I think will be favorable at the end of the year. The expenditure side is a little bit less certain, and that's why I would not commit to all of it, but hold some of it back, and kind of as time goes on, I think more money will open up.
What was the state? $185,000.
$185,000.
That's good.
So that's not to say that there aren't future risks that would be prudent to budget for or to hold some of that money back for. They're still talking about property tax freezes. They're still talking about state funding changes and TRS pension shifts. So there's money, it is smart to have as high of a fund balance as possible now, but the projections that you have in front of you show in this budget year of 2015-16 at that 9.8, that assumes that we're flat to budget this year. So to the extent that we exceed our budget or our fund balance at the end of the year by $500,000 or more, that number is going to go up. And so that all falls straight down to fund balance.
That's the part I think, I want to make sure everybody understands that part.
So in my projections, what I've done is projected forward. And my starting point, because of the way I built my model, is the budget. So the current year budget is kind of the starting point. I did not redo this year's budget to account for all the favorability that I'm expecting. So that's not reflected anywhere on
Well, at the end of the year, correct me if I'm wrong, we're 1.2 million ahead of where we thought we
year
would
to
be in
date,
fund
we're
balance.
1.2 million ahead.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that some of that is because this is the first year I've done a monthly budget. So
Right.
there's some money that I was expecting to have spent already
Right.
that we haven't spent yet, but we will spend for.
But you think we're going to overspend it roughly $500,000 because you think we're going to have 700,000 left that we didn't anticipate.
Kind of the other way. I mean, I think I'm comfortable we'll have probably at least $500,000
Left.
left.
Okay.
Favorable to budget this year, based on the way things are going.
Which means that from now through the end of the year, we're going to overspend because we're now ahead by 1.2 million.
Right, well, as an example, 350,000 of that was construction costs that we know we're going to spend. We just
Okay.
the checks, the bills are just coming in slower than I expected.
Okay.
So
I think when Jay and I talked, we feel that it will probably reach around 500. We're not willing to commit more than 4.
some of the favorability is special education. So
Which can change
that's
in a
something that
heartbeat.
you don't want to count.
Yeah, I mean, the only point I'm making is right now we're at 1.2 million favorable. And if you're going to be 500 favorable at the end, it means you're going to be unfavorable 700 between now and the end. That's the only point I'm trying to
Yes,
make.
that's correct. I mean, and I could, right off the bat, $170,000 of bond payments was not budgeted for that last payment.
Okay.
And then 350,000 of construction.
Okay.
So I could, so that's probably accurate, you know, and I think on the margin, there's maybe $100,000 swing, you know, it could be one way or the other, but
Okay.
we definitely will be spending more in the back half than we did in the front, relative to budget.
And that's before, so the other thing that several of you have asked me that, Jay, I'd like you to cover is several of you have asked me what would happen if we took it from fund balance. Let's pretend that the budget wasn't favorable and we came out even. What would happen if we took money from the fund balance? So can you cover that piece?
So we were targeting to be between 30% and 50% of operating expenditures in fund balance. So this upper line is 50%, and this lower dotted line is 30%. So you can see that if we were on budget this year, we would expect at the end of this project, if we spent the 9.2 million, to be about 6.2 in fund balance, which is 40%, right in between, you know, right where we want to be. And then the long-term projections are always more accurate in the near term than they are in the out years. So we're still, even after 3 to 4 years, kind of within our limits that we've set, which is a good thing.
And does that assume the risks that you've embedded on the bottom here?
No, so those risks would be incremental to this.
To this. And it
This is
doesn't
kind
also-
of a baseline case, you know, 50-50, not conservative, not aggressive. And then the risks below are illustrated, and these are cumulative. So if you look at the year 2021, that number would be the change to fund balance in that year. So as an example, if they froze our property taxes extensions in 2016 and 2017, our fund balance would be $1 million less than the projection out in year 2021.
And on top of that, of course, if we refinance bonds, we gain back 100,000 a year to these numbers.
Well, the bond refinance would, because it's reduces the debt service extension, goes straight to the taxpayers.
We don't get that. Our taxpayers get it though.
I got a question.
Yes.
So at the end of the project, I'm looking at this chart,
Mhm.
2016-17 school year, and if we spend 9.2 as planned, it leaves us at about 6.2 million,
Yes.
right? So the floor of our fund balance policy, the dotted line, is at what? What is that at? 4.5, almost 5 million?
4 3/4.
30% of the
Yeah, 4.7.
Okay, so you got a million five cushion in there, roughly, without the
risks.
the risks.
Without the risks. And I just do want to point out the trend line. I mean, has
Yeah.
changed from kind of a flat trend to a downward trend, primarily due to the low CPI numbers.
Yeah.
You know, our revenue's not growing as fast as we had projected. I've adjusted these projections to be more conservative. So whereas we were projecting long-term CPI of 2%, I've reduced it to 1% next year and 1.5% in the next 2 years. So there's a little bit more conservatism in this forecast, and you know, a good CPI year would help us. But any legislation to freeze our tax extension at 0 CPI would also have a significant negative impact. And like North Chicago is not considered anywhere on this chart, and so that's there's just a lot of uncertainty out in the future.
So the village, despite the fact that they've asked us to make these changes, haven't decided to pitch in any money toward those changes?
No.
Jade, so if we just worst case kind of scenario, if we decided to move ahead with all these alternatives, and we're looking at $700,000 of alternatives, roughly somewhere in that neighborhood, and we can find conservatively $300,000 or $400,000 in this year's budget, that might mean, if we thought it was appropriate, because sometimes it's more efficient, more effective, and cost effective to do it right now than wait a few years. Plus, we disturb classes and kids less by doing it now. We're looking at $200,000 or $300,000 that maybe we could tap into fund balance to fund the rest of that. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Does that doesn't sound like that huge a number to draw fund balance.
It isn't, but the only risk is then you bring your fund balance down to probably 5.5, 5, 6, something like that, and it continues to decline thereafter, and ultimately,
Yeah. I mean,
that's
it's a
the
So
risk.
we have to weigh things out. But I'm just saying, it's. I guess I was thinking there was going to be a bigger number that we were going to need to draw out of fund balance. And that's reassuring.
Obviously, the 2020 is a long time away, but that getting down below 30% is pretty worrisome. What I notice is that we have projected pretty good increases in expenditures, right? That we've had a couple of years now where we're pretty flat. The last 2 or 3 years, 13, 14, and then 14, 15, and 15, 16. Those expenditures have, just looking at the pink lines, are pretty flat. But we are, maybe it's a bit of conservatism, but we are seeing a pretty steep increase in those out years on the expense side.
All the assumptions are laid out on this sheet here. I think some of the things that might be driving that, one are health insurance costs, which are a significant portion of our budget. We've seen unusually favorable
years.
performance in the last couple of years, and I've projected basically health insurance trend of 5% out going forward.
I see.
So I think I wouldn't want to, it may come in less, but I wouldn't feel comfortable projecting anything.
I just see this as going through this trend line, even assuming we don't pull from fund balance to make up for these alternates. By 2020, we're below what our range is targeted to be at. Not dangerously low, but below. And I'm guessing that if we go out one more year, we get a little bit lower too.
That's
right?
that's the way it goes.
So we could control expenses as a way that we will be attempting, of course, to control that trend line. Right.
And the other big portion of our expenses is our teacher salaries.
Right.
And so those are fixed through 2018-19 based on the contract. So we've seen the biggest growth in those salaries this year and next year, and then it starts to level out a little bit.
Negotiate it for 1 year.
I've assumed just basic step increase in the last 2 years. We may not. Who knows what will happen with the new contract.
I understand. Yeah.
This also assumes flat the enrollment projections I have not shown on here, but they show stable enrollment. I mean, for the next several years, which also means stable staffing. So any staffing changes have a big impact, or and enrollment changes have a big impact on our results.
Yeah, understood. This is helpful, Jay.
I think something to consider too, and I'm not arguing against our fund balance policy, but there are people on this board and other boards that would consider it a luxury to have a 30% fund balance. There's many districts that operate quite well, and well below that.
I would agree with that if the trend weren't so decisively
Well, I think one thing,
going down. If we were looking at a leveling off, I might feel comfortable at 25%. But we're, the next year after that is not looking any better.
the one thing you have to be careful about is the compounding factor in out years, because it always magnifies. If you look at, the blue line was always greater than the red line up until virtually this year, and all of a sudden that gets reversed, and to a certain extent that's because the compounding of expenses is greater than the compounding for revenue expectation. I understand why you did that, but it is a pretty far distant out.
Well, and also the point is, you budget from year to year. This is a long-term projection that just runs by itself. In reality, you would get to the next year's budget and you would see what your revenue is going to be, and you'd try to adjust your expenses to match your revenue so that you wouldn't go negative. Beyond, so I think that the biggest drivers of this are probably the changes in CPI and in new property, and those are very uncertain. And then beyond salaries and benefits, the growth in other supplies and services are a small portion of the budget, and they're also, I've reduced their growth rate kind of in line with the CPI growth rate. So, I think John's correct that it's, I would look at the near years more, but it does, what it illustrates is that if things continue the way they are, our expenses are going to grow faster than our revenue, and there may not be a lot we can do about that given the contractual relationship of our salaries and how tied we are to the tax levy.
Yeah.
Do you have a spreadsheet that backs up the assumptions somewhere with just the pure numbers on them? Can you shoot that to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, all you're doing here is providing with assumptions. I'd just like to see a little bit about what's behind the actual numbers once you do the multiplication.
Jay, if you send that to me, I'll send it to him.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start the conversation just to get the conversation going.
I just want to point out one other thing, is that we already are paying for some of the security and technology for the middle school out of district funds. So that will probably be coming out of our capital budget next year, instead of this 9.2. So that's all. We needed to rewire the building anyway because it was end of life, and we are also putting in security cameras, which we were going to do anyway. We're doing it at the elementary school, so they're sort of done in conjunction with the building renovation, but we're paying them out of district funds since it was going to be, we were going to do it whether we touch the middle school or not. So there's some of that money that's already kind of accounted for.
Well, and the other money that we've been so fortunate, I mean, when PTO donates almost $200,000, that takes care of our entire STEM lab. So that has helped us more than anybody can know.
Huge.
So, because they're also buying a lot of the equipment and things that go in there with that. So, I'm going to start a discussion just for purposes of getting this going. We're not taking an official vote on it tonight, but at least this will give us an idea on how to move forward. When Jay and I went through this, and after the meeting, and please step forward on this too as I present this, our steering committee, again, which is our larger committee, in discussions of this, kind of the natural breaking point was the revised front entrance. We took the district office out. In other words, we didn't really talk about that. The flooring, hardware, floors, that was the natural place where it stopped, right in front of the water to the storage shed. When Jay and I talked today about this, so I'm just going to throw it out there, and then you guys, we can move forward on that. Without touching our fund balance, the revised front entrance, the existing corridor flooring, the existing classroom doors and hardware, keeping in mind that this was from the steering committee, and the replacing of classroom floors adds up to be about $400,000, right around there. which we could take out of this year's budget. We believe pretty strongly with that. The timing will be perfect because the bid packages will be coming along with that. So just to start the conversation, that would be kind of what we'll start the recommendation with after Jay and I talked. If some of these other things you're interested in, I'm going to get back to the sound abatement. We still don't know. That's an uncertain right now that we will probably know more about in the next couple of weeks. But if there's anything else somebody feels strongly about, or if you want to get all of it done with the fund balance, you just need to let us know. But my initial conversation is we keep the district office in the project because that's what we told people when we talked about it, and honor what the steering committee said. So I'm just going to throw it out now. You guys can talk.
I feel fairly strongly from our conversations that we need to take care of this. We're calling it storage shed, but by putting utilities out there, we're going to save a lot, I think, in terms of staff time and money, and possibly, it sounded like, even some safety
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Gas as opposed to electric.
Well, they need heat, they need hot water, they need to be able to clean equipment and move salt around, and it's the description I heard of doing that without those things in that shed sounded like kind of a nightmare.
And it's about 14,000.
Yeah, so
No-brainer.
The other thing that dawns on me is that they're going in and out of the school building to do those things. That's a safety issue for the kids. Just
Yeah.
open doors, more open doors. So I think that for $14,000.
So we could go down to that and stop right in front of the screen sound abatement.
And by saying screen sound abatement, we're not saying that we aren't going
We
to.
have to
Exactly. We have to wait and see.
So
And that might be part of that 90,000 that.
that's like 385,000, I think is the total.
I just have a nagging concern. It gets back to my original question. We're over budget in a number of areas so far. What if we're 400 over budget in the remainder of the top piece? Isn't this 400 we have as a protection?
That's my concern as well. I mean, off 40%. I mean, you look at some of these other things here. I mean, I don't know if these have been bid. I mean, there's other comparable things. I don't know if they're out to bid yet, but I mean, if you're off at those percentages as well on other concrete, aluminum, I mean, all those other things.
Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, those are part of the contingency, and that's why you have the contingency, and it's serving its function right now and covering
Correct, yeah.
those overages.
It is we're carrying a contingency for those issues, not to mention that we carry allowances, contingencies within each contractor's contract to cover those types of things.
But we've eaten up the contingency. We're 28,000 over the total, so we've already eaten up the contingency in the
We still
first.
have 300,000 in contingency left.
But
Where
it's
is
9334 versus 9297.
It's right here.
I know where it is, but it doesn't make sense to be
Are-
there. It's not.
are
Yeah, but
the-
the total cost in the estimate was 9297, correct?
Correct.
And now we're saying that the actual and/or estimate is 9334. So including the contingency, we're over by 20,
Yes.
30, $37,000, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we've already eaten, from my way of thinking, we've already eaten up the contingency. I mean, I see where it sits on the line item thing, but as a result of the $250,000 shortfall in concrete and steel, we've already eaten up that contingency. And my concern is with still yet another $6 or $7 million.
We had almost 500,000 in contingency before we started the first bid.
Yeah, I see that, but
If you made the
I'm
nine-
looking at the totals.
If you made those two bottom totals
Yeah.
equal, 927,
Yeah.
929, if you made them equal, you'd have to reduce that 300, but you'd still have some left. You'd
Yeah.
still have 250,000 of contingency left
70 or
in the
80.
project.
We've eaten up quite a bit of
You
contingency.
can have a lot of it, but you still have,
But
that's what it's
I
for.
just,
it does, the order of magnitude on these estimates is frightening when you look down the line at the $1 million estimates we have and the numerous.
I just kind of feel like we don't know what the price of the car is yet, and we're already adding options, and so I wouldn't feel comfortable moving forward on any alternatives right now. Personally, I'm just going to say that. 'Cause, I mean, you were really off. I mean, can you explain what was going on in the market?
Two things. I mean, starting with steel, one of the areas in terms of steel was there's an area where we had to add some steel supports to the existing roof that we didn't account for. And talking with the steel guy, just the scaffold to do that was $32,000. Okay. As far as the commodity of steel itself, prices have held pretty firm. They haven't really fluctuated. Concrete, probably the single biggest cost was the increase in concrete prices, net prices, in terms of the feedback that we've gotten.
Is that a seasonal thing? I mean, what?
Yeah, there is a seasonal cost that gets hit with it as well by doing it in March when we anticipate doing it. That added to the cost as well.
So what are the unknowns in this column when it says actual and or estimated to the right? What don't we have the actual number for yet?
Anything white.
Anything in white?
Yes.
Only the one bid is.
We've only put one bid package out. We
No,
have
no,
3
we-
more.
Oh, so there is.
When are we gonna
No,
do
the stuff in the blue we know.
Right.
It's just that, yeah, it's all the other stuff.
Everything in white. Yeah,
We
that's
released the
what
second
we're-
bid package.
The second bid package is out, which
Right.
consists of masonry, roofing, and the aluminum storefront.
So that's the next round that comes in, and when we'll know those when?
You vote on it at the end of February, so
Yes.
So
Okay, so pretty soon.
we'll know that then. If we don't make a decision on any of these alternates until the end of February, we'll still be in a position to make a decision that's not hold any implementation.
The 17th of February is the next bid package.
Yeah, please do.
That's the beauty of, and the reason why we take alternates, so that you'll know once the actual bids come
Go to
back.
the-
Right. Okay.
I would like to wait.
Is that the case with the revised front entrance? Because I know we want to get approval, right? Don't we need to at least agree to the revised front entrance tonight, or no? Because.
well, we have to let the village know about the
The
revised.
board
front
doesn't
entrance.
have to do anything about it though.
I see, okay, because
It's just a
I'm in agreement
discussion.
that we need to table the alternatives, but except for the revised front entrance, because I don't want any ambiguity about that to hold up the village approvals.
Well, and I think Susan, I think you're making a good point. I mean, is there anything on here that the village is going to come back and go, well, we really want you to do this?
The front entrance.
We're beyond that part.
All right, okay.
It's just
She's
the front
working
entrance.
very closely with them to let them know exactly where we stand.
All right.
And when you say the village approval, are they standing in the way, or would they just like something different? Do they know the cost of this something different? They may have a different
Oh,
feeling about it.
They do know the cost, and I think the only thing that is non-negotiable, and it's still an indefinite, is they want us to take care of the acoustical situation with the HVAC. All the other things are things that they'd like to see, but they're not mandating us to do. Landscaping around the shed,
The exterior lighting.
exterior lighting, skylight.
It strikes me though that the front entrance, even though they're not mandating it, if we don't give some approval to that, we could slow ourselves down on February 2nd.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
I think.
I think we need that at minimum tonight.
Yes, that's what, I don't want anything to get in the way of the February 2nd.
Because if it's not approved on February 2nd, we're going to be behind the
Then it
project.
messes up our schedule.
And lots of regards.
Okay, so one other clarifying question then. Does our not giving you the go-ahead on all of these first 7 items tonight affect your ability to go out and solicit bids and do whatever you need to do to
No.
keep moving forward?
No,
So if we wait another month?
we would still list them as an alternate.
Yep.
You never have to accept them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Still gonna confirm the drawings, you get the bids
Yeah.
contract.
Yep.
So that's 2 months.
And until those bids come in, and even the next bid package doesn't have
Right. So there's no,
anything that would affect it.
great, there's no vote here tonight, but
There isn't.
we're giving guidance. So are we hearing consistency? Is everybody comfortable in waiting another month on these alternates?
Except for
I
the
mean,
front entrance.
Except for
Yeah.
the front entrance?
Except for the front entrance, I don't want any ambiguity
I agree
about
with that.
February 2nd.
What
I
exactly
agree.
are we approving on the front entrance? Is anyone, I
We're
assume
just
somebody's seen it.
No,
we've seen
we brought it here.
You
Oh,
guys,
That
it's the
was-
one was brought here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
it's a much
That's fine.
more elaborate front entrance than was
Oh.
originally developed.
I thought it was
With a
something
nice
different.
seating area,
No.
and it's very nice.
Good. Okay.
I think we should be clear. I don't think the village should have any doubt that we're willing to do that.
So are we, Rich, I haven't heard from you on this, are you comfortable where we're headed on this?
I'm fine.
Okay, so are we all comfortable with that?
Can I ask one other? Could I have one other question to ask Tom?
Yes,
Is there so the things that are outstanding
correct.
that have not been bid yet? Do you look at those? I mean, you've done this many times. Is there anything more predictable about the cost for those, or less predictable about the cost for those?
One thing that happens that I start fluctuating numbers within trade packages is how we package things together. There's some things that might be in the trade package that have included in, say, general trades, but now we're gonna put it in plumbing, okay? So those numbers are gonna adjust. As White prepares drawings, I always do another check, okay? When this bid package came out for the next 3 items, we did another check on those 3 items as cost to try to update those and make sure that there's nothing glaring in
Okay.
those. So when bid group 3 comes out, I'll do the same thing for those particular items as well.
But you wouldn't say, well, this is one that is very predictable and reliable, or this one is not very predictable at all because it tends to fluctuate a lot.
You know, I wouldn't do you a service if I could sit here and predict what the marketplace and what they're gonna come in at.
Good.
We could find that half of them come in over 20% and the other half come in under 20%.
Okay.
It wouldn't do you any good for me to sit here and try to predict.
Tom, you said they were coming in, we were opening them February 17th. So that means if you can arrange your schedule to come to the regular board meeting in February,
I think that's what
at the end of the month, then you can present that to them before they actually have to take do the bid approvals on that, because the bid approvals are after the regular board meeting.
Oh, okay.
If that's good for all of you guys. Then you can at least hear about it from him.
And when is the regular board meeting?
23rd.
23rd? Okay.
And that gives you time to vet it out and talk to the
Yes.
other people too.
So I just want to summarize. Are we all in agreement that we're giving Gene and Tom and Craig the go-ahead direction to move ahead with the front entrance as an extra, but we're holding off on the other ones
On
till we
everything else.
hear more
Yes,
information?
that's what I would like to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you need from us tonight?
Nope.
You guys need anything else from us tonight?
We will continue to get information for you.
So I think that concludes our discussion of the renovations, unless anybody has an issue they want to raise.
I do have one more question. Do you ever go back out for bid when the bids come out so much higher than our estimate, like estimation?
Yeah, we would if there was what we felt might have been something really out of whack in that particular one. The problem is that you generally have to change scope. Just throwing it back out on the street with exactly the same stuff in there, I don't think you're gonna get a much better number.
Right. Well, you go first.
Right.
You had a fair amount of bidders. You had 7 bidders, I think.
I think we had 7 that ranged from the 563 up to 751.
Yeah,
Something like that.
yeah, I remember. Right. Okay. Well, hopefully they come in 40% lower next time.
Nice. So we're gonna move ahead. We all good?
Yes.
All right. So
Thank you.
we are done with the renovation discussion. So we're gonna go back up to the top and touch the school district 2016-2017 school district calendar issue.
Those are in front of you, and I need to run through those very quickly with you because our calendar, because of construction, is deeply impacted. So I want to walk you through. These are by no means finished.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Go home, get some sleep. I just want to point out a couple things. When the calendar committee met, and I'm going to review the process again with you once more. There is a calendar committee comprised of all the administrators along with a teacher representative from each building. And the board has final approval, but the teachers always have input into this. When we start school after Labor Day, it goes out without saying that we will go to school longer in June. So what you have in front of you are two calendars, and I just need general feedback. I'm going to share teacher feedback with you also. If you look to the Aligns to Lake Forest Thanksgiving, winter, and spring breaks, and it says that up at the top in red, you would see that we will have 2 Teacher Institute days before Labor Day, a Teacher Institute day after Labor Day,
What are the colors we're looking for those?
Orange.
Okay.
One after, to give our middle school teachers time to get organized. Then I want to point out a couple things to you. Number 1, in November, you'll notice that we would be in school on the day before Thanksgiving. Overwhelmingly, and that's on the Lake Forest calendar. No, we would not be in school on Thanksgiving. I'll get to that on the campaign. You need to pay attention to that date though, because we're going to come back to it. We would have the Christmas holidays, which is very controversial in Lake County. Everyone's doing something different. We would be off school the 19th through the 30th and come back to school. You'll notice on January 3rd, again, the teachers would be coming back for a Teacher Institute on the 2nd. We align our spring break at the end of March. Here's the bottom line. We will be in school until June. We don't have the last school day noted.
16.
June 16th, okay? So June 16th is our last day of school for students. If we had snow days, it would be up through possibly June 22nd. Now, I'm going to share with you my concern with this, and I think we're running into Park District programs. That runs very late and to camps. However,
But they'll align to us.
Yes, they will.
and they will, and this aligns to Lake Forest, which we've always done, because many of our families have elementary and high school students, and we try to align our breaks with them. Okay, now, if you look at the next calendar, we're calling it the compact schedule. All right?
So
And
same start.
it has the same start, but I want to point a couple differences. Number 1, teacher input was, boy, the majority of schools get out the first week in June. They're going to be looking for babysitters for at least 2 weeks at the end in June on the traditional calendar that we have. And they don't know if they can always get that. That's concerning. So we did this compact calendar. And basically with the compact calendar, the school year starts out the same way as the other one. But we would be in school, for instance, on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Everybody in both buildings said, no way, we do not want to be in school on Thanksgiving. That was, teachers gave that input, I got that today. We would eat up a couple days during Christmas break. So instead of being off 2 solid weeks, we would be in school the 19th, 20th, and 21st, and then only have 7 school days off. You need to keep that in mind. In both calendars, I'm going to tell you that the way we orchestrated, we will not be able to do Tri-District Day with Lake Forest because there's no way, based on our schedule, that our institute days can fit in that particular calendar. If you look at spring break, those are the same. I know that at least on 1, if not 2 calendars, we're in school on Good Friday, which I've been told we did when the elementary school was being built. And I did get feedback from both staff saying, well, why would we be in school on Good Friday? Well, the teachers brought that we were in school on Good Friday when the elementary school was being built, so we put that in.
When is Good Friday?
Good Friday, I think, is April.
4th of March? No, this next year?
That's what I was.
Okay.
April 14th, that's it,
Okay.
Good Friday. I want to point out to you, when you look at the compact schedule, we can possibly get the kids out by June 9th. We end with the Teacher Institute Day so the kids don't have to come back on the 12th. So we're ending school almost a week earlier. I need to know, you're all live in the community, your parents. we can make anything work. I think the feedback that I got from both staffs, they have some concerns about the compact calendar, but they're also very concerned about ending school as late as the traditional calendar ends us.
So you're not going to make everybody happy.
We're not going to make everybody happy, but what we've traditionally done is align with the Lake Forest High School.
And then the following school, you're going to have a normal stuff, right?
The following, well, that's a very good question, Mark Berry, because the teachers asked us if we could kind of ease into, so we don't have such a short summer. I still don't know what's going on at Lake Forest High School with their calendar for future years because they're debating that. So right now, as soon as we make the decision on this calendar, we're going to come up with 2 options for the following year's calendar, and that will be dictated on whatever Lake Forest decides they're going to do. So we're not totally off alignment.
If you want an opinion, I think if you got kids in high school and junior high, elementary, in my opinion, would be go with the option that keeps us in as close of alignment with Lake Forest High School.
Okay?
That's my opinion.
And I need opinion.
Which I understand is the one that aligns, not the compact, but the alignment
Right.
count. This is the calendar I've been dreaming of since I got to this school district, so I like the alignment one. Absolutely.
The longer you can have them.
I agree with Julie
What?
After like
because after Labor Day and then the weather and the beginning of June is terrible anyway, so why have
Summer seems so short when you go back before Labor Day.
But
But neither one anticipates that, so that's not really the choice before us. It's really, do we want to shortcut the winter break?
Or align with the high school. And Philip has given his, and he is voting on the. I just need your
You want
opinions
an
because
opinion.
we need to go back. So that's all I need is because
Makes no difference to me. I try to find out from the parents with
Yeah,
kids
I
in the
would
school.
agree. I'll let the guys with kids in school make that call this time.
Yeah.
What
And
do you
it
guys
seems
think?
to me that the one argument I heard in favor of ending earlier in June was the teachers and their need for childcare. And I
And
would
camps.
assume
I'm worried about that.
But at the end of the day, it's 5 days. Really, it's a 5-day
Yeah.
difference. Just go for alignment. I mean,
No,
it's-
that's not just Park District camps though. Many of our families use other kinds of camps and go away camps, and those all start usually the second week in June.
and they're probably the same families that may be going away that week in December. I just think we'll lose
Right.
those. Won't be really good instructional days in December if we use that.
That's a good point. We talked about that.
I kind of agree with that. I think people that rely on a 2-week break are gonna take a 2-week break
No matter what.
no matter what. But by the same token, I think we're gonna have some people that say, school shouldn't really be in at the end of June and we'll see in the fall. So I don't know that it makes, no.
So,
Parents
and
in
And
the
some
audience
good
wanna-
faces from the gallery.
Yeah, we need
Yeah, let's-
to render an opinion here.
Yeah.
they're waiting for our decision too, by
So
the
we're
way.
gonna we wanna start after Labor Day for sure.
Well, that's good. That's a definite.
Yeah,
As
that's
long as
how do
everybody
you
knows
feel
that this is
about
just
that?
because of the 1 year. This is just a 1 year.
This is just a 1 year.
Well, we,
But noted for
maybe.
Does the park district, since it is mainly.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you
He's gonna-
you
Can
believe
use
it.
a
Her's gonna
microphone.
come down and get us in trouble, so yeah. Sorry.
We were just talking to see, since, Lake left Park District with all their camps, can they modify it based on
They probably
kids
would.
getting out? I mean, I know for preschool and all that, but is it,
That's why they're waiting on this calendar.
Okay.
That's why we've got to make some decisions quickly because they've always worked with us. They're
yeah,
phenomenal.
so the camps could hold off until we're out.
The 19th, it's probably.
But it's late, and so I think for them too. The other thing that I worry about for them is that's a week or 2 less of revenue for them in the summer.
But then we go longer. They could extend their camps.
So that's true. This summer.
This year. Yeah.
That's true.
Usually those camps start a couple weeks after school gets out anyway.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I think it's like 1 week and then
Yeah.
they start the
Yeah.
following week.
So, our parents that are here, do you like the idea of finishing earlier in June or being aligned to the Lake Forest High School schedule? That's what, and that's kind of what I thought, but I wanted to make sure. The staffing, but see, Here's what's gonna happen, I'm just letting everybody know ahead of time. I'm gonna have parents call me June 1st of that year and say, who the heck came up with the schedule that we're ending on June such and such? So,
Send them to me.
That's right. There must be a good answer for it. I've had it before, and that's the day and a half for conferences. It seems like is there any way we could do them one day rather than day and a half for conferences?
yeah, that has all been discussed with the teachers and it's worked out with the state because we have to be able to certify the number of days that our teachers are in session.
Okay.
So in order to get those evening hours, we have to set it up the way that we've got it now. It's a good question because most other districts do it this exact same way.
Yeah.
And most board members ask that same question because it's a good question. So, all right. So I take it from this that I go back to the teachers, which I think the teachers generally are going to feel the same way. So we'll go back to the general alignment. I do need to talk to them about this and then I'll bring it to you. The earlier I can get approval on this, the better it's going to be for the park district. So, yeah.
All right. So, just to reiterate, as we mentioned earlier, item 8B, we are tabling until the next committee of the whole meeting, where we will just retitle it and discuss about programming changes, not just the multi-age program, but others as well. Okay, moving to item C, North Chicago update. Dr. Sophie will give us that.
All right, I'm just looking for my notes on this. I do have specific talking points to share about this topic.
Now, did everybody read the 200-page document about North Chicago?
And I would
From 1993.
I'm going to share that all of the districts that are contiguous to North Chicago are all giving the exact same talking points. So I think it's important that I stay consistent with them. I will share with you kind of what the facts are and what's ahead. Here's the basic background information. A Learn Charter currently operates one elementary level charter school in North Chicago District 187, which serves approximately 500 students. Learn Charter has proposed a second elementary charter school in North Chicago District 187, which will serve approximately 500 additional students. If the second Learn Charter is granted, approximately 1/3 of all District 187 students will be enrolled in a Learn Charter school. So what does that mean? The expected loss of state special appropriation to District 187 is monumental.
The money follows the kids, right?
Money follows the kid. The expected loss of federal super impact aid if the number of military kids in the system drops below 20%, which will happen if the Learn Charter becomes its own local educational agency, again, is devastating to North Chicago finances. The state superintendent and Dr. Martindale, who I will remind you was the interim superintendent here the year before I came in, have tried to bargain a scaled down compromise with the Learn Charter for a second charter, which would involve fewer kids in that second charter, thus leaving the percentage of military kids in North Chicago above that required 20% federal super impact aid level. The compromise then would allow North Chicago School District to continue on as a school district longer, but not forever, given the potential impact of increased charter costs. The Learn Charter rejected the compromise, this happened over Christmas, and will likely initiate the process to fully expand their charter in the district. The North Chicago School Board is reviewing the additional Learn Charter expansion proposal and expects to make a final decision on the issue on February 4th. If the North Chicago Board rejects the expansion proposal, as allowed under state law, the Learn Charter may appeal to the Illinois Charter School Commission, which will certainly override the North Chicago School Board rejection and allow the second Learn Charter to proceed. If the North Chicago District 187 loses the state special appropriation and federal super impact aid, District 187 North Chicago will likely not be able to continue as a local school district, and this will happen sooner rather than later. Now, again, there is a lot of misinformation there's a lot of things going on. We are at the beginning stages of discussions. On Monday of next week, I have a meeting in North Chicago with Ben Martindale and all the superintendents that are contiguous to North Chicago for more information. They keep referring back to this nice long document that I put in your board packets and that is available for public view on the meeting that was held February 5th, 1993. And this keeps coming up because apparently the same thing happened at that time period and the state bailed them out and worked through the process. So
It wasn't a charter school issue. But
it wasn't a charter school, but it was another issue that resulted in some financial problems. So you need to know what's in this charter, or this particular document. I have booked Ben Martindale for the March Committee of the Whole meeting to come and present to us. At that meeting, I will also be inviting other village officials and board members in case they're interested. And I think it's just going to be important that we stay on top of the issue. And as soon as I know more information, I will share that with you. That's my report, just like the same report as all the other superintendents.
So Jean, the issue here potentially is that the North Chicago district is divvied up between continuous districts, and ours would be one of those. We would now service a number of North Chicago students.
Correct.
Okay.
And you, at one point, I think I heard a number around 200 for us.
Around 200 right now. And again, we're at the very, very preliminary stages of discussion. So I think we have to sort through my uncertainty, which is going to show up in the next item anyway, is that I don't have a lot of faith in the Illinois State Board of Education right now. And I don't know what's going to happen. You know, it's just been within the past 2 weeks that Governor Rauner has said he's not going to help Chicago out because they're having financial issues. So there's just a lot of uncertainty. And from what I understand, there was a lot of uncertainty at that time also. So
The estimate of 200 students, where does that come from?
that comes if you apply all the formulas and everything that they had agreed upon in this old agreement from 1993, because we have nothing else to refer back to.
Okay.
It would be around 200 students.
So these kids wouldn't potentially fit within the charter school system that's being established?
These kids would not be in the charter school system, and
Is that because of financial reasons, or is that,
Well, there wouldn't be enough space.
there wouldn't be enough space for all.
so they're
So that
building
charter
schools
school-
that are not gonna allow enough space for the kids to
The
attend?
charter school would fill up, the public school would be bankrupt, and then the kids.
The
would
rest
be
of the kids would be
dispersed among-
divvied up.
Putting stress on all the surrounding districts.
So is it a foregone conclusion that they would be divvied up as opposed to subsumed by another?
There's no foregoing conclusion to anything right now.
It's
I
just
mean,
that
there's
1993, which is non-binding.
There's all kinds of discussion on what if, and I think, you know, Ben has meetings on this at least once a week. Things change almost every day. I'm so thankful he's there because I feel like since he was in Lake Bluff, he has kind of a, I don't know.
So following this through, would that then mean that if you had 200 additional students out of North Chicago that came through Lake Bluff, then those students would then go on with this being their K-8 district to Lake Forest High School?
Yes.
So it's a Lake Forest issue for them as well.
So they wouldn't remain in North Chicago and be taught by our teachers, they would actually physically,
No, that we don't know.
okay.
Because our facilities, one of the considerations is our facilities are in Holland. So, you know, I think
Repeat that, what did you just say?
our facilities wouldn't hold 200 additional students.
Yeah, I know.
So, you know, there's all kinds of things. Well, would they come here? Would we staff their buildings? And who's going to pay for that? You know, there's all kinds of discussions on that.
A lot of details. to
So,
look
I will share with you that in Lake County, our head representative of superintendents was approached and asked for volunteers for a school district consolidation committee. They did this in my first year in Westchester, so it was about 7 years ago at this point. I have volunteered for that because I want to be on the forefront of what is possibly around the corner. There were many volunteers, so I don't know what will be happening with that. But along with this discussion comes the consolidation, and I'm sure many of you have heard, we have all these governmental entities in the state of Illinois, more than anybody else. So when are we going to start looking at consolidating? And it comes up. In my career, this is probably the 5th time it's come up. But in my career, the financial issues in the state of Illinois have never been as bad. So I think we just need to stay on top of it and beware. Until we know
If you
more.
read that document too, it sounded pretty bad in '93 as well.
Yeah.
They were not talking about good times.
Right. And I will share, and I've shared this with Mark, the superintendent of Vernon Hills Libertyville High School District was actually a superintendent during that time period and sits in these meetings with us. So he is very helpful as far as this is what we discuss, this is how we discuss it, this is why we are at this point. And so, any involvement, he will always help us with discussions like that. So we'll just stay on top of it.
Do you know off the top of your head how many students in K through 8 in North Chicago?
That I don't remember. I just remembered our number. That's what stuck to me at that point.
Is that the number from back then?
Yeah, if we applied their same mapping and their same formulas from back then, from this long agreement, it would be about 200 kids.
That's-
Smaller numbers.
It's smaller now, it's 200 now. It was a
It was
different
larger.
number.
Right.
A lot.
It's just applying their same
Same
formulas and the
formulas.
mapping.
Well, and some of the kids are at a charter school, so
Right.
in theory they don't need to.
Would it be 200 plus the kids in charter schools?
My understanding, and like I said, this changes every week, we get more information. The number that I walked out of in shock and called Kevin and Jay with was 200. But that could change. Hopefully it would change decreasing.
What if the charter school got bigger? For 1,000?
But if the state came through with money to bail them out.
So there's all kinds of things going on with it, and I think we just need to stay on top of it. So.
Any other conversation on the North Chicago situation? No, not here, any? Moving down to B, the kids assessment, which is including the work document, Dr. Sophie Richardson.
And I'm just going to give you the synopsis. I put a lot of reading in your packets in case you were interested. Here's the bottom line. We were told about a year ago that there was going to be a mandatory kindergarten assessment. Many superintendents in Lake County were extremely upset about that, including me. And we banded together and came up with a white paper on the subject. And then the state backed down and said, okay, we're not going to make you guys do it. School started this year, and the back to school seminar that we all watched on webinar. Oh, and don't forget to get your teachers trained for the mandatory kindergarten assessment. We had not received any notification that was back in the picture. So here's the bottom line. A group of superintendents in Lake County and DuPage County are working together. We actually pulled together for an entire day and worked, and we came up with the premise of, listen, here's what the kids assessment assesses. There's 3 main areas: math, literacy, social emotional. Here's how we all assess that in our current school districts. So if we're already assessing that, why can't we just report that to you? Then we already know the time limitations, it's minimal, and we don't have to change anything, and there's no financial, and we don't have to train our teachers. The kids assessment is extremely time consuming. We don't even know if the information would be valuable. Once again, we would have to figure out which assessments we're going to get rid of. And so I put in paperwork. We wrote the state superintendent a letter. I have approached representatives, and we are meeting with the state superintendent on February 24th. My question to you as a board, as long as we don't lose anything, meaning recognition, possibly funding, and I'd have to bring Jay into that conversation on exactly what we get from the state. It's not a whole lot. I need to make sure as a board, you guys are okay with us saying no to the state on not doing an assessment.
Tell them to take a hike.
I'm behind you.
As long as you're gonna handle all the risks.
I cannot put the district in a risk. If we were to lose recognition, to me, that we would have to take the assessment then. But they can't answer us what the penalty would be. And I just feel that assessment of kindergarten students, we are assessing them. We feel comfortable with the time we're using. We do not have full day kindergarten for our kids to be assessed. So, you know, we follow the rules. I'm a rule follower. It's very unusual for me to break out of that mold. But I have to do what I think is best for the children in our school district, and I do not feel that this is best for our children. So I will not put the district in any jeopardy to do that, but I need to make sure that everybody is with me in the box with that as I move forward.
Where are we as far as the number of people, number of districts? I saw them listed. Is that a huge percent of them? I mean,
It's almost all.
Groundswell of everybody.
You have, these are the two most influential counties in the state of Illinois. We have almost every superintendent. There's one that likes the kids assessment that did not sign off. And I will share with you that it took the state over 5 weeks to return an email or call to the two most influential counties in the state. And if you read through it, which it's long and I realize that, our approach is not to be rebel rousers. Our approach is to say, we value the work you do. You do. We agree with it. We already do it. So just let us do what we're doing. That's our approach. And, you know, we're not getting a whole lot of great reception on that, but I will give the new state superintendent a chance before I say anything more. And then we'll have to make some decisions. I have shared with some of you, and I'm going to share with all of you, I don't want to be in the news on refusing to do an assessment. When we're in the news, I want it to be about all the great things that are going on with kids in the school district. But I just feel very strongly this goes against the philosophy of what we've got here.
You can just answer the news reporters the way politicians do. Just say whatever it is you want to say. Rather than answer the question.
So, Jean, I feel strongly about this as well, but I guess before I say for certain how, whether I would reject it, I'd need more information. I don't, if, for example, which I doubt is going to be the case, we were the only school district in Lake County to refuse it, I'm not sure I would support refusing it.
I can guarantee you that won't happen.
Yeah. So I completely agree with you. It seems ridiculous and exactly the wrong thing for this group of schools to do. There may be schools where this kind of thing is
exactly. It should be a choice.
It should be offered to them, and hopefully school districts that don't have an assessment at all would pick up on that. And it looks like it may be a very good tool if time intensive. So I just put a little bit of the caveat to my support. I don't think I'll be the only.
No. I would agree with you on that. And again, I'm going to tell you, our philosophy is not to be rebel rousers. We're trying to advocate for this in the right manner.
And it seems that's exactly like what's happening. So I'm not at all concerned. I just wanted to make sure that
we're going to be thoughtful when we do it, but we're now in a corner because this is supposed to start next fall.
Yeah.
And we have not spent the money to send our teachers for training yet.
Well,
so if we don't get an answer in the next month, then we've got to pull our teachers out of class again. I think it's only a half-day training now. They've cut back on that. Pay for their training and start planning for it. So, and that's why we've really asked for this meeting, because we're all on a spot. I know for a fact that many of my colleagues have said, I don't care, we're not doing it. So, you know, when push comes to shove, that's going to be the question of the hour, who's not. So
I'm a bit of a lemming on this. You know, I feel more comfortable if there are others doing the same thing. But
I get that.
I'm glad that you have a strong voice on this.
And I don't want to be a trailblazer by myself. I like a team of trailblazers. So that's my report on that.
Okay. Any other comments on that issue? So okay, moving on. We're going to go to action items. Yes. So everybody get ready.
Fast.
Get warmed up. Crack your knuckles. This is going to go fast. Pay attention. First item, 9A, student fees. We talked about this at the last meeting. Mr. Khan is recommending that we keep our student fees constant from last year.
Which includes free bus transportation.
So moved.
I'm going to read the motion anyways. I need a motion to approve the 2016-2017 student fees and authorize the waiver of all fees for students who meet the criteria as recommended by the administration. So moved, and we have a second. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Leanne Charlo, yes. Julie Gottschall.
Yes.
Richard Hay.
Yes.
Philip Hood.
Yes.
John Rosen.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Okay, motion approved. Item 9B, 2016-2017 building use fees. Very similar approach. Mr. Khan is recommending that we keep the building use fees the same as last year, correct? Anything
Yes.
else you want to add?
No.
Okay, you all read it? We have a motion to approve the 2016-2017 building use fees as presented by the administration.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Nope.
Roll call vote, please.
Leanne Charlo, yes. Julie Gottschall.
Yes.
Richard Hay.
Yes.
Philip Hood.
Yes.
John Rosen.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes. Motion's approved. Item 9C, destruction of closed session verbatim tapes. Recall we spoke about this in closed session. I would like a motion to authorize the destruction of closed session verbatim tapes from December 10th, 2013 through May 13th, 2014 as recommended by the superintendent.
So moved. Second.
Second. I think I can do it all in favor vote here. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 9D, similarly, we spoke in closed session about the release of closed session minutes. May I have a motion to release closed session minutes from May 22nd, 2015, June 9th, 2015, November 10th, 2015, as is June 16th, 2015, and August 25th, 2015, with redactions as recommended by the superintendent, and keep all remaining closed session minutes not previously approved for release on file as confidential.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is approved. 9E, approval of the NSSED District 109 resolution. Here we're talking about a motion to approve the resolution for the consensual withdrawal of Deerfield Public Schools from District 109 from the Northern Suburban Special Education District effective July 1, 2017, as recommended by the administration. Jean, do you need to give a 2-second highlight on that one? Just
I think the highlight on it is that, as I've shared with you before, Deerfield has moved their year back. They are also going through a very intense study of their services with NSSED. So I recommend that we approve their withdrawal, and if they've already said that if something comes about from their study that says that they don't feel that they can service the kids themselves, then they will be pulling this letter. So they've been very forthright on that. So I'm recommending approval of their withdrawal letter.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, we have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
You know, it indirectly has a financial thing, so I vote on that
So
one.
it's a roll call vote, please.
Julie Gottschall.
Yes.
Richard Hay.
Yes.
Philip Hood.
Yes.
John Rosen.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Leanne Charlo, yes.
Motion passes. 9F, approval of policy for second read. In this case, we're talking about a motion to approve policy 7:10, equal education opportunities for second read and adoption as presented by the administration. Does any of the policy committee have anything to add here?
No, policy is
Ready to
well
go?
done. Ready to go. Yes.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the policy
Thank you.
7:10, equal education opportunities for second read and adoption as presented by the administration.
So moved. Second.
Does this cost us anything to
No.
make changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Approval of personnel report. As you have in your board packet, we're talking about a motion to approve the personnel report for January 26, 2016 as presented by the administration and includes the hiring of Carla Quick, summer school principal for $5,400 effective May 27, 2016 through August 19, 2016, and the approval of a medical leave for Elizabeth Schutz from February 1, 2016 through the end of the school year.
So
Questions,
moved.
comments, concerns?
Second.
So moved. Second. Roll call vote, please.
Philip Hood.
Yes.
Jen Rosen.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Leanne Charlo, yes. Julie Gatchell.
Yes.
Richard Haig.
Yes.
Okay, motion's approved. And our final action item for the evening is our consent agenda. In this case, we're talking about a motion to approve the consent agenda for January 26, 2016, as presented by the administration and includes the regular Board of Education meeting minutes for December 15, 2015, Committee of the Whole meeting minutes for January 12, 2016, the P card report, the bills report, the impress report, and the December treasurer's report. Would anybody like any of those pulled for further discussion?
No.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Jen Rosen.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Leanne Charlo, yes. Julie Gatchell.
Yes.
Richard Haig.
Yes.
Philip Hood.
Yes.
Motion is approved. And of our action items, agenda item 10, FOIA request. There was one FOIA request. It was received from One Chance Illinois regarding gifted and talented programming. It took 3 hours of administrative time to prepare. Anything you'd like to add about that?
No.
So that's just an FYI. And then I'm going to ask if anybody would like to address the board. But I don't see anybody here.
Crickets.
Crickets. We'll move on. And at 8:40 p.m., we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Good job.
Excellent. Thank you.
Excellent.
Good job.
Thank you, everybody.
Very.